Most of us are used to shopping in stores where one section is devoted to fresh produce, but the rest of the food for sale is either boxed, canned, or shrink wrapped. Today's guest is an urban farmer and food advocate teaching the world about the benefits of growing our own food and eating fresh fruits and vegetables, whether grown on a community farm or in our own backyards. She's Jamila Norman, this week on Story in the Public Square. Hello and welcome to Story in the Public Square, where storytelling meets public affairs. I'm Jim Ludis from the Pell Center at Salve Regina University.
And I'm G. Wayne Miller, also at Salve's Pell Center.
This week we're joined by Jamila Norman, an urban farmer, food activist, and host of Homegrown on the Magnolia Network. She joins us today from Atlanta. Jamila, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, we were chatting before we started, and we are just huge fans of your work. And we want to talk about Homegrown, but I want to start talking about urban farming. For an audience that may or may not be familiar with it, what is urban farming?
Yeah, urban farming is just growing within, a city landscape. So whether it's right here, I'm in the city of Atlanta, or even in the suburbs, it's not rural. It's right in the city where you're growing.
How widespread is this? I'm thinking about, there's a phenomena with food deserts that is a problem in a lot of places across the United States. How common is urban farming?
I think it's pretty common. I mean, you'll find people growing food on small lots, on rooftops in a lot of metro cities, New York, California, in LA. Chicago, Detroit. So it's definitely something that people have taken on themselves and just really are trying to solve some of their own issues around food and food access in their own communities.
So you mentioned many other cities besides Atlanta. So clearly you do not need, the warmer climate of an Atlanta to be an urban farmer. Do I have that correct? I mean, you could do this in Buffalo, for example, or you could do this in parts of Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people farm all over the country. I mean, what differentiates farming in Atlanta, whether it's urban or rural, from say a northern or Midwestern city, is just how long your season is. So Atlanta, we pretty much are able to farm year round. When you go up to Vermont, some of the colder areas, you might only have 6 months where you can really farm when the weather's good. So it just depends on your region and how much time you have to actually grow something. But it can happen all over the nation.
Yeah, Jim and I were talking before we began taping about victory gardens, which began after World War II, hence the name Victory Gardens, and they were urban farms essentially. So the current movement, does it trace its roots to victory gardens, or does it go back even further than that?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely victory gardens help to sort of inspire the movement. The difference between, I say, a victory garden, which generally is for an individual home or for a family, and an urban farm is we're operating as independent businesses. We're serving the market, we're selling produce, we're going to, so we're operating as a business. So it's kind of like taking that victory garden idea and then, pushing it into a business enterprise where we're serving more than just our families, but like the larger community.
So Jamila, how did you get into farming in general and urban farming in particular?
Well, my family is from the Caribbeans, and I've always been interested in sort of nature, the outdoors. I always had a vision of I'm going to have my own homestead one day and live off the land. But we found ourselves in Atlanta, and I sort of found my way there. I was an engineer for 10 years with the state in environmental engineering, working on water, wastewater stuff. And the community that I moved to in Atlanta, Southwest Atlanta, just really had some food access issues. I mean, there's a lot of fast food, there's a lot of corner stores, but there just wasn't a lot of good food. So I started really with a group of people in the neighborhood, and we were like, okay, we're gonna just grow some food for our families. And then it's kind of like I got the bug, I caught the urban farming bug, and it just transformed into, my own independent business enterprise.
So you began Patchwork City Farms, and that's the farm that you have now. Tell us about the history of that and what you do today. A fascinating
Yeah,
story.
so I think, yeah, Patchwork City Farms started in 2010. I was working full time as an engineer. I was raising my three boys that were, in the public school system. And I started with a friend of mine in the neighborhood. And the idea was that we thought we were just going to have smaller lots. And so we were going to be operating on multiple lots in the city, transforming those vacant lots into farms, right? So that was the idea of Patchwork. Fast forward till now, I actually have an acre and a half that I purchased 5 minutes from my house, right in the city of Atlanta, and I operate the farm there. And we are growing year round, literally 80 different types of fruits and veggies, herbs. I sell a local farmers market. We sell to chefs. We do food donations to in partnership with a local nonprofit, and then we also sell online, and people come on to the farm and pick up produce. So it's just really grown. Have one additional patch that's around the corner, so it's still a patchwork, but it's an additional half acre. So altogether, it's like 2 acres that I'm farming on.
So, pardon the pun, give us a flavor of what you grow there. You grow vegetables, you grow flowers, and
Yeah.
give us some of the selections. If we were to come down and visit, we would see what, and
I mean,
we'd
like
want to
right
buy it all.
now, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like right now, it's springtime, so we have like all the leafy greens, spinach, and multiple types of lettuce, and kale and collards. And then throughout the year, we'll do tomatoes and cucumbers and eggplants, carrots, beets, strawberries. I've got fruit trees that are not quite mature yet, but we'll have a lot of fruit coming in. We harvested persimmons. I do a lot of culinary herbs. We do cut flowers, sunflowers, and zinnias. And now I'm branching off into a little bit of dye crops, like I'm growing some indigo and marigolds and things like that for, natural dyes. So it changes every year, and I'm always excited about growing something new and adding something new to the mix.
How big is the workforce? How many people do you have working there? Obviously, you're
Mhm.
working there, but who else? How many others?
Yeah, yeah. Usually when we're fully operational, so we'll maintain two people, myself and farm coordinator, and then during the height of the season, kind of like right now, I'll hire on another person and a half. So we'll have like between three 3 to 4 people working throughout the season on the farm.
Okay, so I have to ask, do your boys work there too, or are they into farming, or what are they into?
They used to. I mean, when I started this farm, they were 5, 7, and 9, and now they're 23, 21, and 19. So they're like finishing up college. They're kind of doing their own thing right now. But I have one son, my middle son. He's going to culinary school. He's always been into food and he loves food. So,
So,
but they helped me a lot on the farm when they were younger.
Jamila, I know that you're also a food advocate, and some of the stuff that I've seen you talk about in other forums is about sort of encouraging people to eat fresh food. I think you call it living food.
Mhm.
Why is that important, and how does that tie into the farming that you do?
Yeah, I have a background in environmental engineering, so I got a chance to see sort of firsthand, you know, how the environment affects communities and specifically kind of like poor communities, more marginalized communities, Black communities. And then living in a sort of historically Black part of town here in Atlanta, I also saw like, that there's just like not a lot of healthy food options. So, um, and then realizing that a lot of the diseases and just health issues that people are dealing with are really diet related diseases. So, we're talking about heart disease, which is the number one killer. That's really diet and exercise. We're talking about, diabetes, things like that. And so I just wanted to be part of the solution, and really we're encouraging people to try to reduce the amount of processed food and really incorporate a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables. And then the fresher things are, the faster, the closer it is to the source, the more nutrient dense it is. So when we're selling to customers, usually it's maybe picked, within a day, or like, no more than a couple of days. So they're getting like the best, the freshest, and people get really excited about it, and they come back and they tell stories about, what we did, and how they can just tell that the food is different.
When I was growing up, really young, we lived in upstate New York, and we had a big hunk of land that had a huge garden. At least to the memory of me as a 7-year-old, that was a huge garden. And later we moved to Connecticut, and my dad still would put a patch of garden in the backyard, and we would grow vegetables and tomatoes and things that we would actually eat. As an adult, I haven't done any of that, and I don't know that I would know how to start if I wanted to. So for people like me who maybe wish that they had a little bit more of a green thumb, how do we even start farming or gardening in this case?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any formal training, like my great grandparents on both my family side were the last people to garden. And, by the time I kind of got to know them, they were in their hundreds. So it surely wasn't showing me the ropes. But I just devoured information, read a lot, researched a lot. I think, there's so many resources out there where, like, I mean, you literally can go to YouTube University and learn everything, you know? And so that's kind of how I got into it. Like, I just was like, I want to learn and I want to know, and just kind of jumped in, and you have to like start, right? You just, start with one plant, nurture that, and then usually people get the bug, and then they'll, if they have space, they'll do a raised bed and, try to plant some stuff. And I'm still learning, even though I've been doing this, almost 14 years. I'm still learning, still pivoting, still adjusting, still reaching out to other farmers like, oh, what are you doing with this? So definitely having a community and reaching out to other people that are growing helps, and supports you in whatever it is that you're trying to do.
So Jim's memory brings back a memory of my father, who was the son of a farmer. And my father was an airplane mechanic, but he had a little garden, and we grew vegetables there. We used to take the wastewater from a washing machine to water it. And my first job, I guess, was I would load vegetables and bring them around the neighborhood in a wagon and sell them to people. Anyway, I had to mention that because you mentioned everyone has a farmer's story. The question I wanted to ask, though, is you have obviously inspired a lot of people to garden and to have their own urban farms. Do you have any sense of how many people or where? I'm guessing obviously others in Atlanta, but what has your impact been in that regard, in spreading the word, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I will say definitely, have the show Homegrown, and that's the premise of the show, is like really helping people to garden for themselves. And previous to that, like within the Atlanta area, within the Southeast, we used to get a lot of people that would reach out, hey, I see what you're doing, and how can, like, I want to do what you're doing. People were inspired. And now that I have this national platform, we're getting people from like literally all over the country. To quantify it, I mean, I have no idea. But literally people calling in from all over the country, sending messages. They're inspired, they're excited, they want to learn. Of course, everyone wants me to come to their own backyard and do it. And I'm like, maybe we'll take the show on the road. I don't know. But right now we're in Atlanta. Yeah, so it's definitely been inspiring. And I think, I'm just, like you said, you have your story of being connected to farming in some way, and both of you guys have had your story, and it's like part of the journey is actually uncovering for people that they have a connection, right? It might have been, you know, severed a generation or two, but like if you guys kind of sort of really look back, you know, oh, my grandmother, she kept a, you know, a kitchen garden, or we always had something in the back, or we'd run outside and, you know, grab some herbs. So those are kind of the stories that I'm hearing from people as we sort of, you know, uh vision and think about, you know, farming and gardening and how they can get into it.
Well, if you're taking those kinds of requests, I can think of one place in the great Northeast that would be thrilled to have your help. That would be my house.
My house first, though.
Jamila,
I'll just get a bidding war going. And, you know,
Actually, my wife is a really good gardener and you know, suburban farmer. So, but you could definitely come and visit and give us some tips.
So,
Go ahead, Jim.
Jamila, so you mentioned Homegrown on the Magnolia Network. Your season 3 debuted on April 1st. How did the show come to be in the first place?
I got an email.
That's how everything begins these days, right?
Literally, yeah. I mean, it definitely is interesting, and it's definitely a journey I never saw myself taking. You know, I didn't have visions of like being on TV. And so this local production company reached out and they're like, we have this idea for this show, and there's this network getting ready to launch. And for me, why I was interested in the show was that it was important for the company and Magnolia Network specifically that whatever it is that we shot was authentic, was information that people can really, you know, take and implement wherever they are and have success. And so I saw it for myself as an opportunity to spread information and sort of answer the requests of a lot of people that were reaching out to me to be like, oh, can you help me do what you're doing? And I'm like, well, I can't be everywhere at once. Oh, but here's a platform where I can share a lot of information at once. And so the feedback we've been getting is like, oh my God, I was following that. I followed that tip you shared on the show, and it's really working and helping. So I feel really good that that was a vision for it and that it actually is like manifested. But yeah, it was an email, it was a cold call and in February, and I just was like, yeah, I'm gonna check it out, you know, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's tremendous.
So, Jamila, we're taping this at the end of March, and season 3 of Homegrown will debut on April 1st. So we haven't had a chance to see it. Obviously, you've taped it. Give us an overview of what season 3 will be about, and just you know, as best you can, or as you can summarize. How many episodes, first of all, and what's the general tenor of the season?
Yeah, so season 3, we did 8 episodes. We ventured a little bit further outside of the city, so some of the spaces that we're transforming have become bigger. We have some interesting spaces that are not just homes, but also businesses. So we did a brewery where we showed someone how to grow hops and harvest the hops so that they were cooperating in their brewery. We're adding more animals to the mix. So we've got people that have I think you know, season 1 we had chickens, but we added cows to some families. We added goats. Like we just kind of like really stretched and try to bring in more of what people are expecting. You know, around farms, and it's not just vegetables. It's just not a raised bed in a backyard. So, yeah, it got really fun. And just kind of going further outside of sort of city of Atlanta and really going into Metro Atlanta.
One of the questions that I always ponder when I watch a show like Homegrown is how do you find the properties or the families or the individuals that you're going to help? How do you find those individuals?
Yeah, we definitely do casting calls. Like we kind of put it out there and we're like, we're filming the show. We're looking for people, you know, who are wanting to do this for their families, you know what I mean, who are already embarking on this journey. And then, you know, we visit. I mean, it's a very long process to do just one show. I mean, we'll spend somewhere between 4 to 8 months producing one show just because we're going from one, from like the way the property is, where like nothing is done, to like totally transforming it. So we're really on a long journey with each family. And it just depends on the scale of the project. But yeah, we put it out there, people reach out, and then, we're looking to see what is unique and interesting about this situation, and, what kind of value would it add to the show. And, how good are people on camera, how comfortable they are. And but yeah, people hit us up all the time. I want to be on the show. Pick me, like so we don't yeah, we definitely have a lot to choose from.
So I'm intrigued by the addition of more animals. As you mentioned, you have had animals before, chickens, I recall. Why add more animals? I think it's a great thing to do. You mentioned cows, you mentioned goats, love goats, wish we had a property where we could have a goat. Why add animals, and why is that important, as important
Yeah.
or equally important as the plants?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like, we're finding families that are really interested in incorporating, animals into their specific sites. And also, with farm animals, like there just tends to be, like, from a sustainability standpoint, this ecosystem where animals are working in, um synergistically with, the farm to kind of add value. So whether, you're getting milk, or you're getting eggs, or, they're helping to sort of fertilize a pasture and keep an area green, or, just whatever that purpose that family is looking for, we're just helping them to figure out how to incorporate animals within their farms. And also, people love animals. Like, who doesn't love a goat, or a sheep,
I've
or
never met
a cute
anyone who
cow?
didn't.
Yeah, people love animals, and I think that's generally sort of a lot of what people think about when they think of farms. They think more animals than they think vegetables. So, we were definitely responding to sort of the demands of the consumer, but then, just keeping it interesting.
So you've talked about the physical health benefits of the type of farming that you do and you inspire other people to do. There's another aspect too, and that's the mental health aspect of farming and gardening. Talk about that. I think many people will relate to what you get mentally just being outside or being in a greenhouse and working the land. Talk about that.
Yeah, a lot of us are working in buildings. We're sitting in front of our computer, we're not moving, we're not active, we're not getting fresh air. So being outside, keeping a garden, small, medium, large, working the farm, it just, that, like you said, the mental health benefits of just sort of breathing fresh air, moving, and just the process of seeing something either go from a really, really teeny seed or a small plant, and watching that grow, nurturing it. And now, like, you have all of this harvest and this abundant harvest, and you get to like feed your family, and you get to see that happen over and over again with a bunch of different plants throughout the whole year. So it's just really, it's exciting, it's magical, it's always new. I'm always excited and giddy at the beginning of the year, because I'm just like, I don't, I plant carrots, for instance, and I'm always like, are they gonna make it? And then I'll pull a carrot, and I'm like, like, I still get excited, harvesting, the vegetables and things that I grow. And I think, that's what people, are connected to: fresh air, just movement, just, nurturing something. And it's just it's a beautiful process and experience.
Hey, Jamila, I know that you're also a founding member and current manager of the Southwest Atlanta Growers Cooperative, the SWAG co-op.
Yeah.
What does SWAG do?
Yeah, so Southwest Atlanta Growers Cooperative is a co-op of like Black urban farmers here in the city of Atlanta. And so it actually started specifically in the neighborhood where I was, because there was like a lot of different Black farmers, small spaces, upwards of like 3 acres. And I was just like, guys, we should just like get together, form a co-op, so we can, tell our story, represent Black farmers just in general, in sort of in the media, in the public eye, so people know that like we're here and we're doing this work. And then essentially it's just kind of grown to the metro Atlanta region. But really, it's about us coming together collectively to market our products, to inform people about who we are, where we are, how they can engage with us, how they can buy from the co-op, and then also finding resources to support the individual farmers so that they can be economically viable. And I just saw that need and was like, oh yeah, I started a farm and I'm going to start a co-op too, because I have lots of time to do all the things.
I was going to say, we got about 30 seconds left here. How do you do all of this between the TV show, the farm, the co-op? We didn't even mention Eat, Move, Be Well. You've got a ton of stuff going on.
I don't know, I eat a lot of kale and greens. I look back and, when you're young, you have so much energy. Like, I look back at some of their pictures and my face was all like round and fat. And I just had so much energy. And I'm a doer, I like, if I see something, I'm jumping in it. I want to do it. I want to just get my hands dirty. And if I see a need, I feel a need. And, that's just, I think about energy later, I guess.
Well, Jamila, we are so grateful to you for sharing some of that energy with us today. She is Jamila Norman. She's on Homegrown on the Magnolia Network and Patchwork Farms. That's all the time we have this week, but if you want to know more about Story in the Public Square, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit pellcenter.org, where you can always catch up on previous episodes. For G. Wayne Miller, I'm Jim Ludis, asking you to join us again next time for more Story in the Public Square.